What's up, guys? Today I'm making a video that I've kind of wanted to avoid for a while because there's a lot of doom and gloom in the Destiny community right now, deserved or otherwise, and I try historically not to contribute to that. At least here, I've had my moments of weakness. Everybody does, and I just wanted to kind of talk about state of the game. Really, this is about the tweet that came out yesterday, kind of unceremoniously coming out. Let me read it to you. This is from Destiny 2. I'm reading it on Blue Sky. Wherever you get your Destiny 2 news, I'm sure they have something to this effect on there. Our next major update, Destiny 2 Shadow and Order, is undergoing large revisions and will be delayed. Just to tackle that first part, there have been so many leaks about the delay. Paul Tassie's been talking about it for weeks. I think, 2 weeks before it's supposed to come out is a really lousy time to announce it. And that's not even like, that's just a general like respect for your player base kind of thing. I understand maybe wanting to have some of the news that follows with this. I can, to an extent, respect wanting to have that. However, I think saying nothing for as long as they did is really disrespectful to the community. And that's not like an entitlement type of statement when I say that. That's just, basic human decency. Like, if you're not going to do the thing you said you're going to do, you should let me know sooner. I don't know anybody who's taken time off for Shadow and Order, but like, if this had been like an expansion release or something like that, you could argue that, yeah, they'd have to get out in front of it, a little bit more than they did. I still think, for the state that the game is in and for the community that wants to still believe in the game, I think Bungie really let them down by waiting until 2 weeks before the release of this content, knowing again it was definitely going to be delayed because of Marathon and things like that. I think this was really like not the way to handle this, and I'm really very personally upset with Bungie, and take that as you will with whatever grain of salt you want to say to that. I am personally disappointed with Bungie for their handling of this situation, and just the fact that they chose to remain silent as long as they did for kind of as little as we got in return. So anyway, Shadow and Order is undergoing a large revision, will be delayed. This update is being changed and expanded to include sizable quality of life updates, and as a result, will be renamed. This update will now launch on June 9th, 2026. That's, tweet number 1. June 9th is 3 months and a week from the March 2nd release date that was initially announced. 3 months for a granted sizable sounding update based on what they're saying here, but it is 3 additional months for an expansion that didn't have 3 months worth of content to begin with, from at least from the perspective of a player who extensively played Destiny. I tried to record footage to play in the background of this, and I just I haven't played a lot of Destiny since January. And I tried to record some background footage for this, and I had this situation where I was in the middle of a sabotage on doing the Renegade stuff. I can't even remember what the stuff is called. That's how long it's been since I've really played it. But I was doing a sabotage mission, and there was an invader, and I killed the invader. And then they spawned in like a weird position above me where I couldn't see them. I like knew the general area where they were, but I didn't realize they were where they were. They killed me. Then they dropped down. I respawned right in front of them and got killed again. And then before I respawned behind them, but before I could do anything, one of my teammates got killed. And I was just like, I just like sighed. I literally sighed. And I alt F4'd the game. Like, I just hit Alt F4 and I said, screw it. I'm going to post a screenshot of this because I just don't want to do this right now. The only reason I am playing Destiny right now is to record footage for this video where, like, I'm just kind of talking about my feelings about the game, which are not positive at the moment. And it's a shame. And I'm going to get into it. And it's not like, I'm not trying to come from a place of like needless negativity. I am trying to ultimately be constructive, but I had a lot of talks with people yesterday about this tweet. Let's get through the rest of the tweet, but like I kind of want to break this down section by section a little. June 9th is way too long for what this will ultimately be based on what they are currently telling us. And there are other issues with this, okay? I am not trying to, like, I'm trying to keep nice, even tone. I'm not trying to, like, raise my voice, be sensational about this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to rally the troops. I just want to talk. You know, kind of brings me back to my podcasting days a little bit. Number 2, we will provide exact details closer to release covering previously announced weapon tier upgrading, but also additions like expanding tiered gear to all raid and dungeon activities, Pantheon 2.0, and tier 5 stats for exotic armors and more. That is the highlight. There are 3 more, tweets, air quotes, tweets after this. This is the highlight right here, okay? So, weapon tier upgrading was something that they announced, and I'm glad it's coming. I have a really nice tier 4 SMG from Desert Perpetual that I would like to make a tier 5, and I'll be interested to see how they do it, because it's perfect except for the fact that it's tier 4. But, I still use it. I like it. We have, tiered gear coming to raid and dungeon activities, and they did expand on this. Let me just pull it up real quick. So DMG, and let me make sure I have this also saved. I'll take care of that after. I will put this up there for you as well. From the team, I'm going to move this window over so I can read it. So I'm talking directly into the microphone. From the team, our current plan is to upgrade armor across all raid and dungeon content to the tier system. So just blanket statement, all armor across all raids and dungeons will be tiered post this update at some point. They're not fully clear. I would like to believe it will be ready at the time this update launches, since it is more than 3 months from now. But, we've done this song and dance before, so, holding pattern, we shall see. Our current plan is to upgrade all armor across all raid and dungeon content to the tier system. Weapons from dungeons will also be tiered starting in June, which means I need to go get Indebted Kindness again because I love Indebted Kindness. As for raids, now this part is interesting, and all you crafting lovers out there, hold on to your butts. As for raids, crafted variants of weapons already exist. To elevate those while embracing the power of tiered weapons, we will be upgrading crafted versions and adept variants with new perks and ways to enhance columns to match that of tier 5 weapons. We'll have more details closer to launch. So, they're going to allow you, from the sound of that, again, there's no details here, but the kind of base understanding is that you will be able to take your existing crafted versions of those guns, like my beloved Submission, which I hope gets kinetic tremors. Please give Submission kinetic tremors. I want it so bad. I love that gun. Please just give it kinetic tremors. or something else cool. I need it in my life. I should, in theory, be able to take that weapon that I have almost like 80,000 kills on or something and upgrade it, enhance it further to essentially, invest resources into it and make it a tier 5 weapon, which is actually exciting. And if you're already going to have the crafted versions of those guns, like Reckless Oracle, which just came out before the Edge of Fate, instead of having to regrind a tier 5 Reckless Oracle, if I can upgrade my existing Reckless Oracle, which I also love, and make that tier 5, well, that's just dandy. Because I already like that gun a lot. And so that's an exciting use case for me. And there's a lot of other weapons that I think will really benefit from that. And if they can put some really like new and exciting perks, like, oh my god, Corrective Measure. A tier 5 corrective measure will once again just be the best machine gun in the game. Because that's already the best machine gun in the game. Succession, the other best machine gun in the game from, golly, why can't I think of the Deepstone Crypt? Shut up. Is also going to be tiered, and that's awesome. And this already has a great perk pool, and now it's just going to be a little bit better, and that's awesome. So stuff like that is really cool, and I'm excited for that and to be able to run some of those raids and dungeons again. Now, the other side of that coin, though, the other perspective of that is, while it is exciting that there will be a reason to run that content again, one of my buddies who really has fallen hard, a few of my buddies, honestly, that have really fallen onto hard times with Destiny, like they just don't log in anymore and they don't play and they're waiting for something to grab them. Pantheon 2.0 is great. It's like, yeah, okay, but like all of the content that they are talking about is all existing content that is currently available in Destiny 2 today to be played. Content that, when it comes to raids especially, has already been reprised. And we already ran Garden again and Vogue again and, all these things. And, it'll be nice for the raids like Vow of the Disciple, which hasn't really seen any updates since Witch Queen in 2022. So we're 4 years now. It'll be well past 4 years since that raid got any meaningful update. So that's probably the least updated raid in the game currently, because everything else has been touched and upgraded with crafting and stuff like that. So that's probably the oldest untouched raid at this point, and now it's going to get that gear. And I'm probably going to want to run Master, because I'm assuming that's how you'll get tier 5 and get an adept version of that gun, I should say, and of that submission, and probably want to try and get that and enhance it and do all those things. That's really exciting for me, and I like the idea of that, and I want to do that. But it's content that's already in the game that you can already run. And so their saving grace for this update is, hey, remember those raids you've run and then ran again to get craftable gear and all that stuff, or that raid that you haven't run in 3.5, 4 years because, what was the point? You got all your frames out of it. Well, you can run them again, and now you can get gear you can make tiered. And that's cool. But that's not going to bring people back to the game. That's not going to move the needle on a player base that is disgruntled, that is looking for something, a light at the end of the tunnel. And I audibly gasped when I heard tiered gear in all raid and dungeon activities in Pantheon 2.0. I audibly gasped because that is my favorite content to play in Destiny. And every single person that I spoke to about that, who I would want to run that content with, gave at best a collective shrug. And that kind of broke my heart a little bit, because that's my favorite content in the game to play. Raid and dungeon activities. And then everybody that I want to run that with is like, it's whatever. That's not going to bring me back. And that's what kind of like prompted me to finally do, something like this video, is just because like, what is this? How is this moving the needle for a player base that doesn't see enough content in the game? How is reprising that content again moving the needle to making Destiny 2 a better game? Pantheon 2.0 will bring back a small subset of players who are just here for the peak. When I say competitive, I'm not talking PvP, but when you're talking about like day one raids, things like that, the competition level players who want to play the most difficult version of the game when it's available, Pantheon 2.0 will bring back that subset of players, those lapsed content creators, the highest skill band of players. But the majority of players, like if Destiny 2 on Steam right now is under 7,000 concurrent players, where does that number go with Pantheon 2.0? Because even if it brings that number to 21,000 concurrent players, that's a 3 times multiplier of the player count. More than 3x. That still, in the past, would still be one of the worst performing weeks. That is still like a bottom 10% performing week, probably, of Destiny 2 all time. At this point, maybe bottom 20%, because I feel like that area is expanding every single day. But that is still a highly underperforming player count. And it's not going to bring back the casual players because they don't want to deal with the LFG, especially now that the LFG is also disgruntled. They just want to run their raids. They want to get their stuff. They want to get out. And there's players who just don't know the raids because there's less Sherpas. There's less people invested in Destiny. And so the players who want to experience the content can't, because the only players who are left running it for the most part are the players who just want the stuff, and they don't want to do the additional work of teaching somebody, of carrying somebody. They just want someone who knows what they're doing so they can get in and get out. And I would argue, to what end? Because you're getting all this gear for what? And then that's the other problem, is you're going to upgrade all this gear to tier 5. You're going to put tiered armor, you're going to put, weapon tier upgrading, you're going to do all of these things. And to what end? Because the current end game is and remains the Portal. And that, the end game is not. The Portal is not end game. Like, you would use this in raids and stuff like that, but we don't have a new raid. We haven't gotten a new raid since Epic Desert Perpetual. There's the dungeon, but I don't think nobody is disputing the quality of Equilibrium. Equilibrium is arguably the best dungeon in the game. But I don't think anyone is sitting here saying that, unless you're running feats, which is another unpopular mechanic, but unless you're running feats, you're not really... Nobody's going into that dungeon saying, like, this, I grinded hard just so I could run this 5 feet. Nobody wants to do that. Like, no reasonable player in Destiny is like, yeah, you want to just casually run the 5 feet dungeon? No one is doing that. It's not realistic. And so we're going to get all these upgrades, and we're going to get all these updates to this loot, and it's going to be for this nebulous thing where it's like, well, you can add more modifiers to your Portal activities and really see how that primary weapon just can't do anything. or hey, you can watch Forbearance not kill anything because they have all void shields and match game is on. I digress. It's it's something that now that I've had more time to kind of think about it and sit on it, They are 100% correct. Those people who are saying that this is the content, this is nothing new to the game. This is nothing new and exciting that is going to actually bring back players for a meaningful amount of time or sustainably keep them active with the game, which is something that the game desperately needs. Pantheon 2.0 doesn't do that. And all this other stuff, all this new tier, all these tier updates absolutely do nothing to that. That does not move the needle at all for players. I don't think anybody is saying, thank goodness I can run VoG again for tier 5 armor. I'm just so relieved. Don't text me right now. I'm just so relieved I can run for that armor again. All right, tweet number 3, okay? Through June, we will continue to have routine bug fixes and stability improvements, continued portal modifiers, Guardian games in March, and the return of a more frequent Iron Banner cadence, April. There's 2, maybe 3 important things I want to dissect out of this. So Guardian Games is coming back. I think we've already seen the guns that are going to be in Guardian Games. I don't remember what the new Guardian Games gun is. I know they're updating that trace rifle, and it's going to be incredible, and I want it really bad. Air quotes, want it really bad, because I don't, again, where am I going to use it? You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Routine bug fixes and stability improvements. Cool. I know Bungie is working on their back end. They did a test a few weeks ago to try and improve the back end performance of the game. Again, I say to what end? Because the game is continues to hemorrhage players. And so you can do all the back end improvements you want. That's not content. That's not going to bring people back to this game at a time when, you know, Guardian Games is not bringing players back to this game. You know, Guardian Games might see, like, at best a 50% bump for the first week-ish, you know, because somebody's going to come back and be like, cool, I want these rolls on this gun. Okay, cool, I got a tier 5. Awesome, I'm out. Peace. And they're going to do the thing and disappear, you know, like that meme. More frequent Iron Banner cadence. April. Destiny 2 Renegades. Released. December 2nd, I think it was. Of 2025. Okay? March 2nd is when Shadow and Order was supposed to hit. We're not even talking about Iron Banner until April. So we have this 3-month block of stuff for Renegades. And they didn't think to put an Iron Banner literally anywhere. This is exactly what they did last expansion with Edge of Fate. They said, okay, we're going to work on Iron Banner. We're going to bring it back, in kind of that 4th month. And we're going to show you guys what we've been working on. They brought back exactly one gun, and did one Iron Banner, a single Iron Banner event for 1 week. I think it was a week. Yeah, I think it's still only 1 week. It used to be 2 weeks, and then people complained. Now it's 1 week again, and then people complain. I don't remember. I think it's 1 week. Regardless, they brought back one gun that nobody liked, that they proceeded to buff after the event was over. Stop texting me. Stop texting. Holy shit. Is this work? I'm going to be so mad if this is work. Oh, it is work. I'm not working. I'm off today. I'm not answering this. Go over here. Be quiet. Oh God, what was I saying? So one Iron Banner with one gun nobody liked that they only fixed after the event was over and most people had already either not farmed the weapon or dismantled the weapon. It was Finite Impactor, I believe. Oh my God. Can you tell this video was just like very impromptu and I just like am throwing it together? I just didn't know how else to do it. It was never going to get done if I didn't do it. So here we are. It was bad. It was a really bad Iron Banner. It was unenjoyable. And It didn't feel rewarding, and then they fixed it afterward. And for what? For the handful of content creators who stashed one, and then they could be like, oh yeah, this thing's all right now, I guess, but like there's a way better gun already. Rose still exists, so like who's going to use Finite Impactor? And then that's how it be. That's how it be, though. So it's good that we're going to get a more frequent Iron Banner cadence. I don't understand why it took, or will have taken, 5 months. Count it on your little fingers. 5 whole months for one Iron Banner to come out. A singular Iron Banner. That is just... what? We will be closer to the now 3-month delayed expansion, or not expansion, excuse me, major content update. Major update. We will be closer to that when we get our first Iron Banner of the Renegades expansion than we will be to Renegades. We will almost be still closer to... It's kind of... We're almost closer to the last Iron Banner. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. And this Iron Banner has one new gun. At least it's a new gun. It's a 720 Void Auto with some interesting rolls. And I hope that, I don't ever have to use it. Not because I think it will be bad, but because I will get my Reckless Oracle in June. So I hope that my time spent using it, unless it just feels incredible, will be limited, because I'll just put Reckless Oracle back on and love it, because I love that gun. Rant over with that. But one new gun, which I still don't think is good enough, especially considering it will have been 5 months since the expansion released. I think that's crazy for one updated weapon. Tinashe's isn't back. Multimach isn't back. 2 weapons that could be incredible in the tier system. And Rocket Sidearms really need a win. With the rocket pulses really taking over the meta. You have that Iron Banner trace rifle that was really good. My laptop ramping up. I don't know what it's doing. There's so many weapons that we could be bringing back, we could be reprising, that already have models in the game, and I assume would take less work than making a new gun to update to the tier system. That I would like to see one brand new gun and at least 2 reprisals every, major update Iron Banner that we get, which granted, there has been exactly 1 in Year of the Prophecy, year and a half of the Prophecy. Tweet number 4. In terms of communications, we will be focusing on providing you with updates about our live game content, community activations, and general upkeep through the TWID and our Destiny social channels. So just don't read the TWID, I guess. All like, the TWID has gone from a tool that Bungie had previously used to communicate major changes in the game to just kind of this weird social engagement tool for its most dedicated player base that is shrinking by the day. They're not going to talk about this stuff. So they go together. Tweet number 5. Thank you for your continued patience and support. We will have more information on our next major update and future plans for Destiny 2 closer to launch. See you, Starside. So we're not going to get any major communication with regard to this content until closer to June 9th. So after waiting since September for a roadmap that has still not come, and waiting until 2 weeks before the now delayed major update is supposed to release to announce that it is being delayed. They're going to make us wait almost, probably about 3 additional months before they're even going to start talking about it. And their whole thing is, yeah, we're going to talk to you about updates to our live game content, which is going to be Guardian Games, which is going to be Iron Banner. Those things will be in TWIDs, I assume. And yeah, those TWIDs will at least have something. But how many more TWIDs are we going to have where it's, hey guys, take a picture of your Guardian, doing the cha-cha slide and, in a funky armor, and we're going to Guardian fashion, and it's cool that they're doing that stuff, but that's all they are doing. That's all they are doing is just, creating. They're kind of social farming the community right now because there's so much bad news around Destiny and so much negativity that they're trying to create this kind of positive stream of social media around the game by enlisting dedicated players who want to be rewarded with emblems, want to be rewarded with clout, want to be rewarded in any number of kind of socially engineered ways. I'm a victim of that too, because I submitted pictures for that Star Wars one that they did where they were like, show us your best Renegades fashion. I personally think I had some really good Renegades fashion. I took an awesome screenshot of my Guardian swinging that Praxic blade. I digress. They're kind of social media farming this positive sentiment around the game with people showing off their fashion, bringing excitement. They're directing people to the attention of like, look at this Star Wars thing. You like Star Wars. Destiny is Star Wars. And it's not good. I know what they're doing. I understand it. And, I am one of those sickos who wants the social clout and wants that emblem so I can be like, haha, Guardian fashion, I did it. Woo! They're doing the same thing this week with the speed run of the dungeon, and they're going to give an emblem for that for people who complete that. And like that stuff is cool, but that's all they're doing. They're not giving us any major content updates. They're not doing anything meaningful to the game. They're just having people post on Blue Sky and Twitter and Reddit and all these places trying to kind of drown out the negativity with a bunch of kind of BS, of like, look at my Guardian, isn't she pretty? And that stuff is fine when the game is healthy. The game is not healthy. The community's relationship with the game is not healthy. And many can argue, and I hear you in the back screaming it. Many will argue that the relationship the player community has with this game has never been healthy, and I agree with you. But that's not the issue that we are addressing today in this video. The standoffish nature between Bungie and its community is at an all-time high right now because Bungie under the Destiny team under its current leadership is so gun-shy to say anything that they would rather say nothing at all and let the community run wild with speculation and then put out one kind of almost nothing burger series of tweets and say, here's a bunch of updates to stuff. Here's a bunch of buzzwords we know the community likes to hear, but we're not going to talk about it more until we get closer to June 9th. And in the same breath, they're probably going to launch another marathon trailer and say, hey guys, don't forget Server Slam's coming up. You got to play this shit. I've been good about not swearing in these videos, but there's one. I'm sorry. Sorry if you're offended. And I think Marathon, since they have kind of re-shown Marathon, I think Marathon looks awesome. I think it looks incredible. I like the way it's weird. It looks like, a Bungie shooter, which I really like and am really excited to kind of see how it does. But with the way that Bungie is treating Destiny and its developers and its community, I don't want to buy Marathon. I feel but like it's this weird thing, and I had a friend that I have a friend that I met through Destiny. Shout out to the Nade Face. I don't know if he watches these videos or not, but he was going to school. He's in game development. When I met him, he was going to school for game development, and he is now in game development. And there's an important thing he told me. There was like some drama around a game back, in the Shadowkeep era of Destiny, maybe, when he was actively playing Destiny. And it was a lot of talk of like, oh, well, people are going to boycott the game and do this and do that. And he made an important point of boycotting the game doesn't hurt the people who it needs to hurt. Because it's the executives, it's the C-suite people that get off scot-free. They're not the ones who are going to suffer the consequences for a game underperforming. It is the people who actually make the game that are going to suffer. And so for me, it's a thing of like, I don't want to support Bungie as a developer because I feel scorned by Bungie. I feel slighted by Bungie by the way specifically their management has mishandled, in my opinion, mishandled Destiny, mishandled their studio, and mishandled my I'm trying to think of the right way I want to say this, but mishandled my investment, I think is what I want to say. Mishandled my investment into them and my yeah, I guess it's really just my investment into this franchise and into this developer for years and years and years and years. I feel slighted. And so that makes me not want to buy Marathon, even though by all accounts, and having now played like Arc Raiders and stuff and had a good time, I think I would enjoy Marathon very much. And I'll probably still play the Server Slam. And I'm going to be really disappointed if I enjoy Marathon a lot. I'm going to feel guilty. I already felt guilty. I couldn't believe this. I was talking to somebody and I said the words, I hate feeling guilty about liking the fact that they were adding tiered gear to raids and dungeons because I want to run those raids and dungeons again. Even though everybody is correct in saying that it's the same content that we've run a million times before, and now they're just going to have us run it again, I felt guilty for liking that. And it's like, am I just sick? Am I just my own worst enemy where like Bungie dangles a little carrot of like, hey, you like raids and stuff, want some tier 5 gear? And I'm like, I just want to run. I'll take the carrot still though, but just give it to me. Just give it to me. I felt guilty. And it's sick. It's this weird like parasocial feeling of like, I just want to play the game with my friends, but my friends don't want to play the game. And I'm just disappointed. And now I feel like I'm the problem because I want to keep playing the game. Because I like the game. And I like the dopamine hits that the game gives me when I'm playing my favorite content in the game. But more than that, I miss the dopamine hits this game gives me when I'm doing that content with my friends and these awesome people that I have played Destiny with for years, who don't play the game anymore. Who am I going to have to run Pantheon with me? These people aren't playing the game anymore. And I don't think Pantheon is going to bring back the amount of players that a lot of people think. This isn't a knock on Fallout. I watched Fallout's video today, and I think Fallout has a great video kind of addressing a lot of the... I want to convey this in a way that does not lose the message of what I want to say. I think because he talks about his opinions, he talks about like Maddox and stuff like that, about a tweet he did in response. I think he did a great job of kind of conveying the content creator side of the equation, of talking about like, hey, this is the stuff, this is stuff that will bring me back. this is stuff that, like, you know, and Matt, and to Maddox's point in his tweet saying like that this isn't enough, and Fallout generally agreeing, and I agree as well. And I don't put myself, and I don't say this as like my content's different because I'm not like those guys. I'm not like those guys because I'm just some guy. I'm not Fallout Plays. I'm not Maddox. I'm not Astacross. I'm not Dado. I don't claim to be. And so I don't claim to be a part of that, you know, of that general group's opinion of people who I think are guaranteed to come back for Pantheon because that's what they like and that's what they want to do. I think he did a great job of conveying the sentiment of that group of the player base, of that segment of the player base. And I think it's a video worth watching. Again, fantastic job kind of, you know, outlining why that stuff matters to him and to that segment of the player base. But when you go down one rung, which is where I kind of find myself and most of my friends are, of like, you know, the higher end, like if that's the top 10%, let's just say top 10% of the community. I'm not talking purely skill or anything. I'm just talking of like the people who consistently perform in Destiny, you know, contest raids, dungeons, things like that, whatever, and make a lot of content about Destiny. That's your kind of top 10%, let's say. Maybe top 5%. Then you've got the next, probably closer to top 5%. Then you've got the next kind of the 6 to 20%. That next 15%. That's kind of where I find myself in maybe like that top 10%, but not that top 5% of like, I've got probably 10,000 hours in Destiny. I've done a lot of contest stuff. I don't get all of them because I'm not consistently playing with that caliber of player all the time, as much as I would love to, but that's just not where I'm at. It is what it is, but it appeals to me. But as you get further outside that 10 percentile, as you get into that 11, 12, 13, and down to 20, you start to lose people because it's not enough. It's not moving the game forward in a way that matters. And then anything below that 21 to the bottom 100th percentile, Pantheon does nothing. There's an 80% group, and of course there's always going to be players that do, you know, defy that overall sentiment, right? But we're also talking about a game where I think only 7% of the player base has ever completed a raid. So, you know, before someone in the comments says like, hey, I'm not a this or that, but I want to do Pantheon 2.0, I ask you, have you completed a raid? Congratulations, you're in the top 7, maybe 8. You are at least in the top 10% of Guardians. Congratulations. Take your figurative plaque. That's the reality. Is people who are already playing raids and dungeons consistently, or have like a clear or two, a few, you're probably like platinum on Raid Report. You are in the top percentile. Congratulations, you are in the top percentile of Destiny players because you have cleared a raid, and if you've done it more than once, wow. I'm not being sarcastic with you. It's just funny how that's the breakdown. 90% of the player base has never completed a raid. And that's wild to me because those are the best pieces of content in the game, I think. Those numbers might have shifted. And there's probably a higher percentage of players still playing the game who have cleared that content because those are the people who are the most committed, the most dedicated. They're the ones who are still trying to keep the lights on. But those players in my bracket and down, they're not going to come back for Pantheon. They're certainly not going to come back just because the loot is tiered. They're not going to run VoG again because they can get tier 5 armor. It doesn't matter. It's just, it's not content that's going to move the needle. So we're going to wait until June 9th to get all this stuff that's ultimately going to do maybe nothing. And that's like the kind of worst case scenario, is that Bungie is finally doing something. They're doing things that the community asked them for. And I know in Maddox's tweet, to his credit, he said the community was asking for this 6 months ago. And had it happened 6 months ago, They might have delayed a lot of this stuff. I think it still would have happened, but they could have at least delayed it and then seen what happens. The last part of that last tweet is what I am stuck on. We will have more information on our next major update and future plans for Destiny 2 closer to launch. Future plans for Destiny 2 scares me. I know the popular theory. Everybody wants to say Destiny 3. First, I don't think it's going to be Destiny 3. I don't think you put a 3 at the end of that. Period. You just don't. Like, this isn't Halo. It's not like a proper trilogy, and I don't think it should be. I think if they do make a new Destiny, I think it needs to be a hard reset. I want to be realistic, okay? And I have my opinions on this, and I guess we're just going to get into it. If they stopped working on Destiny, I personally believe when they talk about future plans for Destiny, I don't think we ever see The Alchemist. Let me pull this up now, actually, while I'm thinking of it. So Paul Tassi ran another article talking about the delay and the delay to the roadmap. And there's two scenarios that leads to the delay of the roadmap. Either the first and most unlikely scenario, he said, is that they're adding to the roadmap, they're reinvesting in Destiny, and they're trying to make the game better. The second possibility is that they are going to continue to wind down Destiny, and they're going to look at the reduced player base, and they're going to reduce the commitment and the content accordingly. In Paul Tassi's article, there's an update from a source. He doesn't say the source. I assume it's a source within Bungie. I can tell you right now, the answer for the roadmap delay is not because we added more to the roadmap. So we can more or less, at least unofficially confirm that the reason for the delay is not because Bungie is adding more stuff to that roadmap. That is not the reality that we are living in. Which means the content is at best staying the same. But if it was just going to stay the same but move, why wouldn't they say so? Why wouldn't they just tell us, hey, we have delayed this content by 3 to 4 months to be better aligned with our new content distribution timeline? When I read future plans for Destiny 2, and when I read that statement from Paul Tassi's source, that reads to me as we might not see the Alchemist expansion. That's supposed to be the second expansion in the follow-up to Year of Prophecy. So there's Shattered Cycle, which is supposed to be the next expansion, and then there is the Alchemist. And that's supposed to be just the third and fourth releases in the new saga that they're working on, the Fate saga. I think the Alchemist is probably early enough, or was early enough in development at the time they started making plans and saw everything that was happening at the end of the Edge of Fate. I think the Alchemist was probably early enough at that point where they could have just pulled the plug and said, okay, there's no point in investing in this. It's just not worth it to make another, blockbuster expansion to a game that's just not going to have the numbers to sustain it. I wonder if we're going to even see the Shattered Cycle. Now, there's a universe where, Shattered Cycle is far enough along where they kind of say, well, it's already 80%, 90% there. We've already made the investment. Let's just polish up what's left of it. Maybe we don't go all the way with it. Maybe we sell it at a discount. Maybe we sell it for $20, $30 and just say, look, this is not a complete expansion, but we're going to put it out there for whoever wants it. Maybe Bungie just sucks it up and Sony says, look, just get it out there, give them something, and then we're done. Maybe they release a Shattered Cycle and say, it's just going to be a free update. We're going to release it like a seasonal thing. It's going to be broken up in these ways. And over the next year, you're just going to get the story of the Shattered Cycle in 3-month increments, like an episode. And I think that sucks. But maybe that's what they do, and at least it's free. I just don't see any universe where Bungie continues to put out expansions, even at the size that they are currently putting them out with the Edge of Fate and with Renegades. Because Shattered Cycle has a new zone, I believe. I believe that Shattered Cycle will have a new destination. And so they're not going to keep doing all that work to then not have, they're not going to do that for 7,000 concurrent players on Steam, even if those numbers are probably higher on consoles. They're not going to do that knowing that these numbers are a fraction of what they were even when the Edge of Fate came out, let alone the Final Shape and Lightfall and Witch Queen. It's just not feasible. You can't make these big, air quotes, big expansions for a fraction of your player base. Who is going to buy the Shattered Cycle? Who is going to spend more money on another expansion for Destiny 2 when it feels like Destiny 2 has been on its last leg for 2 years? Nobody's going to do that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make business sense to continue to make content like that. It doesn't make personal sense for me as a consumer to spend more money on a game that I feel like is closer to being done than it is to keep going. I don't want to invest in another story just to have it cut short and never see the conclusion. So I would not be surprised if, if The Alchemist is just canceled altogether. I would not be surprised if they come out and say, yeah, so we're discontinuing. I wholeheartedly expect that this future plans for Destiny to be like, I think it was like the Age of Triumph or something that they did in Destiny 1 when Destiny 2 was coming out. They're going to release all this quality of life stuff. They're going to be like, hey, we're going to put the game in the best possible state as it currently is for players who want to come back to it. And we are washing our hands of Destiny 2. This is it. There's no new content coming. The next year of Destiny is canceled. That would not surprise me in the slightest, and that's what I'm preparing myself for. I am preparing myself for the worst, because anything, and honestly, barring an announcement of 2 additional expansions past The Alchemist, and then being like, we have the commitment from Sony regardless of the player base, if 5 people are playing, we're going to release this content. Unless Sony's CEO comes out in the Vidoc and says, like, we are releasing all of this content, we've already put the money into it, it's happening, rest assured, or I'll sell the PlayStation brand to Samsung. I'm not going to buy into it. It just doesn't make sense. And so the conversation then becomes, okay, if they're not making Destiny 2 anymore, do they take that team and do they make another new Destiny game? And there's another subset of players who are saying that the fate of Destiny relies on Marathon. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Fundamentally disagree with that. That nothing that Marathon does, whether it succeeds or whether it fails, will have any impact on Destiny. It is going to have an impact on Bungie. If Marathon fails, I think Bungie could very well close its doors. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but I think that's like the inevitable conclusion, is if Marathon comes out and flops, I think Bungie's legacy is just so tarnished. And I just don't see any way out of that. And if it succeeds, all they're going to do is put more people on it. I think they're going to take more people from Destiny and put them on Marathon. Because if Marathon is successful and doing well and making money, they're going to want to pump all of that money that they're making into supporting that game so it can make more money and maintain that player base so that it doesn't become another Destiny. And so now you have a team, theoretically, making a new Destiny game. And I want to really think about this critically, because a lot of people just say new Destiny is going to bring all these people back. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a fresh start. Everybody likes to say it's going to be a new engine. We're not going to have the problems. We're not going to have the spaghetti code. Bungie is using the Tiger engine. The Destiny 2 engine. Granted, it's been updated slightly. You know, I think it supports at least DLAA. I don't know if it supports DLSS. I didn't get into like the alpha tests or anything. If somebody has that in the comments, please let me know if you know if it supports DLSS. I have only personally seen DLAA, but I think DLSS would be huge. You know, so if it has that new tech in there, it's still the Tiger engine. It's still the engine that is powering Destiny 2. They like it and trust it so much. This purpose-built engine for Bungie games that in all likelihood is a major contributor to why Bungie shooters feel the way they do and feel so different from everything else on the market. They are going to use this engine again. If they were going to switch engines, if they were going to make the shift to Unreal, I wholeheartedly, just as an example, Unreal, I wholeheartedly believe they would have done it for Marathon. I don't think if the Tiger engine is as bad as the community believes it is, I don't think Bungie would reinvest in it and use it for a second, arguably bigger and more important game for them, especially right now, if they didn't believe in it and didn't think it was the best engine for the game they were making. So I wholeheartedly believe that the next Destiny, if there is one, will also be built on the Tiger engine. So that goes out the window. I do not, my granted limited understanding of game development, but from what I understand, it's the same reason why like the Final Fantasy VII remake devs, they said they're sticking with Unreal Engine 4 for the third installment of that, because they thought about going to Unreal Engine 5, but they were like, we've already made all these modifications to 4. The engine is exactly what we want it to be. It doesn't make sense to redo all that work in Unreal Engine 5 when we can finish what we started in Unreal Engine 4 and still have a quality product at the end. It's the same kind of concept. You know, you could update to Unreal Engine 5, but there's so much work to do to make it be what you need it to be when you already have an engine that does everything you need it to do. So I firmly believe Tiger Engine is the future for any Bungie content. I think they're going to run that thing into the ground until it is unsustainable. And, I think Marathon is proving that it is sustainable, because everybody seems to think Marathon looks great. And the people who have played Marathon in recent private tests have said that the game feels awesome. And so I have no reason to doubt that the Tiger engine is a sustainable product going forward. So a new Destiny, but the same engine, right? As I said before, I don't think you put a 3 on the end. I think this is a completely separate, maybe far future story, new Guardians, however you do it. I don't think our Guardian is the main character. I don't think we have access to our vaults, to our gear. Maybe there's some legacy feature where they look at like, hey, here's all the things you accomplished in Destiny 2, so we're going to give you maybe a bunch of cosmetics in, Destiny New Frontiers or something. And maybe it's just a rotating subtitle for whenever they release new content. But I want people to really think about this. The Destiny team is a fraction of the size it was when Lightfall came out. When when their patience was already wearing thin on seasonal content, when the expansion felt like it wasn't up to snuff, when we already felt like we weren't getting enough meaningful content in the game. Bungie was at the peak of its strength. And then they laid off all those people, and then the Final Shape came out, and it is arguably the best expansion the game has ever gotten. It's between that and Forsaken. My money's on the Final Shape, but, to each their own on that. Regardless, everyone can agree that it was a fantastic release. And then the episodic content went flat until the Heresy episode, which was phenomenal piece of content. I believe it was the lead writer was laid off in one of the best written pieces of content in Destiny. They laid off the person who was, I can't remember if she was the director or the writer, and I apologize. I know her handle is Hazel on social media. Phenomenal. Like, I still think of Oryx's last lines, at least the stars will remember the shape I gave them, is one of the hardest lines in Destiny. That just goes so hard. It's unbelievable. It's so good. At least the stars will remember the shape I gave them. It was brilliant. It's brilliant. I went from somebody who didn't care about Oryx, because I didn't really care for I didn't care for Destiny 1. So, take that as you will. I didn't like D1. Sue me. 10,000 hours later in D2, I don't care. I probably have more time than you, whatever. It's that whole game journalist. I don't remember his name. He works at GameSpot, but he just, like, everybody talks smack about, like, game journalists being able to play games. He says, I'm better than you. His response to anyone who criticizes him, he just says, I'm better at video games than you. Deal with it. I won't go that far, but whatever. I didn't like D1. That made me like Oryx. And I came away from that really just thinking, like, yo, this Taken King guy is a real cool guy. Like, this Hive Pantheon's got something going on, Which is why I'm disappointed that I don't think we're going to see the conclusion of it. And maybe that's something that a future Destiny release does, but I don't know. Anyway, Studio is a fraction of the size now, and they are not making enough content now. The Edge of Fate did not have enough content. The major update for the Edge of Fate actively made players leave the game. It was criticized as being the worst content update the game has ever received. Renegades came out, ignoring the people who just said, wah, Star Wars, wah. Which, if you're one of those people, I'm sorry, Renegades is a good expansion. The actual expansion of Renegades, I have my feelings. I'll just say it. My headcanon of Renegades is that it was supposed to be like a 30th anniversary style update, and it was going to have like a seasonal, it feels like a season, like an episode. It has that kind of cadence to it where it's like, okay, run this, then go run the seasonal activity, then come back to the campaign, then go run the seasonal activity, then go to this destination, then go to this spot and watch a cutscene, and then go back and talk to this person who's not there. It very much has that seasonal storyline cadence to it, but it was good. And I came away from that campaign smiling. I think it's one of the best campaigns in Destiny. I think the activity for Renegades is really good. Lawless Frontier. I remembered it. Finally came back to me. I think the Lawless Frontier is awesome. I think it's one of the better activities we've gotten. And I think Renegades as a whole is an absolute win. I thought it was a win for Destiny then. I still think it's a win for Destiny now. I think it's just a shame that it came when it did, because if this had come sooner and, hit when Destiny was closer to its peak, I think it would have done a lot better. But again, I digress. We already don't have enough content. So we're going to take this small team, this smaller team than what made Destiny 2 what it is today. And we're going to go make a new Destiny. And yes, that Destiny is going to launch with a bunch of new destinations in theory. It's going to have all these new things, and there's going to be a lot of new stuff to explore. It's going to bring back some of that mystery, some of that exploration that Destiny 2 is currently missing. And that stuff's all going to be great for a few months. And then what? What happens when and if we get a new Destiny and we play all of that new content? Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 4 months, maybe it's 6 months that, we go through, hey, you know what, we got these raids, and there's this raid, this dungeon, we got all this content lined up for this, dramatic first year. We've got this major update 6 months later that's going to be like a small expansion thing, whatever. But then you've done it all again. Bungie has a track record of not being able to keep up with the demands of its player base in terms of the content that they need released. And you can put a fresh coat of paint on it. You can put a new subtitle on it. You can put a new number at the end. You can do a million different things. But if you're taking this team, and it's probably going to be smaller if Marathon does well, but if you're going to take this team and go and make a new Destiny that's going to come out in 3, 4, 5 years, fine. Do that. In 3 to 5 years, who is still going to care about Destiny? Maybe you're going to pull in a curious bunch of people who think, oh, that's that old game. Destiny is a 12-year-old franchise this year. Destiny 2 is a 9-year-old game. Who is going to still care about Destiny when, games, when AAA games cost more than ever to make, and developers are trying to avoid making them as much as possible because the risk is too great? I remember Spider-Man 2 came out for the PlayStation 5. Spider-Man 2 came out, and they said it cost $300 million to make that game. And I remember that game sold really well at the beginning, and nobody said anything. Like, Sony never came out and like touted. They might have said like, oh yeah, Spider-Man 2 has sold this many millions of copies. But like, they had to sell so many copies of that game because it cost them $300 million to make and market it. And, some of that is Disney tax and stuff like that. Honestly, I think that's why Renegades probably had to come out when it did, just because like they got to get that thing out the door, because they got to make some of that investment back, because they gave so much money to Disney to make a Star Wars game, basically. And the shame is they made a really good Star Wars game. Bungie could probably make a really good Star Wars game if they let them. But like, what does this game turn into? What does year 2 of a air quotes Destiny 3 look like? Because it's not going to be Forsaken. They have proven that they cannot sustainably make that stuff. And if they do go out and they say, hey, you know what? We're going to make a Forsaken level expansion. Is that the only expansion for the year? Do they still not do seasonal content? Is it going to be an expansion and then 3 months and a major content update and then maybe 3 more months and then maybe like, hey, we got this small little thing that's kind of like Into the Light, and then we got another, major update 3 months after that, and then okay, here's another new expansion, but this one's also a little smaller because, all those players who came in when the game was new, they left because there wasn't enough content. And it's just the cycle again. I don't think there's any saving Destiny 2. I don't think there's any value in a Destiny 3. Because it's just going to be the same thing again, and you're going to mask it for a short amount of time. And I would love to be wrong. I would love for a Destiny 3 to come out, or whatever that is, not Destiny 3, but whatever a new Destiny game is. I would love for it to come out and be a great success and defy expectations. There is so much that they would have to do to accomplish that, and I just don't think they have it in them. In the most respectful way possible, I just don't think they have it in them to make that game. I don't think they want to take the time to make that game, because that just sounds like such an expensive game that if they fail, I think a new Destiny would be more detrimental to Bungie if it failed than Marathon failing would be. And I don't think Marathon is going to fail, for what it's worth, but I do think like if they made another Destiny and spent all that time making that game and it did not succeed, that's it. Show's over. Pack it up. I really don't know I don't know what the course for the future really is. And I wonder if the Destiny franchise as a whole has taken on too much baggage. I wonder if at this point the Destiny name, similar to kind of Bungie, and Bungie I think has an opportunity to recover a lot of that credibility with Marathon. But I wonder if the Destiny name has too much stink on it right now. And it would be better to just get away from it completely and just move on than it would be to even try and make something new with it. I don't see Sony greenlighting a new Destiny game when the Destiny sentiment is what it is. And in 3 to 5 years, it's not like those players are going to go away. Those players will still be burned. And the moment Bungie comes out and says, hey, you know what? We're making a new Destiny game. One of the first comments on that post, I guarantee you, on the YouTube comments, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Reddit, wherever it happens, how long until they sunset half the content in the game? Here's another chance. Does this one include the Destiny content vault? They're just going to open themselves up to the negativity again. So their new game is going to start with this stink on it because everyone's going to throw it at it. Oh, I can't wait to earn a bunch of gear again just for them to take it away. Or make me farm. I can't wait to farm Outbreak Perfected again. I can't wait to get another hung jury. And those are real criticisms. Those are valid criticisms. As much as they are scornful, they are valid because we have been burned before. And that doesn't go away just because you make a new one. Just ask the team at, now Halo Studios, because they've been trying to, remove the stink of Halo 5, at least from the campaign perspective, for years and have failed. Because nobody forgets. A Halo fan does not forget when they have been burned by Halo. A Destiny fan does not forget when they have been burned by Destiny. A Fortnite fan doesn't forget when they've been burned by Fortnite. It's so easy to just go out on social media and just remind everybody, hey, remember, this is the developer who sunset half the game. This developer took content that people paid for away from them. That's never going away. And that is a huge contributing factor to why Destiny is in the state it is in today. Because there are a lot of players who played up to that point, and the moment that happened, they said, nah, I'm done. This is insane. I paid for this, you're going to take it away. And that's a whole issue with video games as a whole right now. But it is real and it is valid. Those people are not wrong for feeling hurt by that. And that doesn't just go away because you make a new one. And I don't think ultimately anything that Bungie said in this, kind of coming back to this tweet, this sky, I don't know what you call things on a blue sky. This cloud. On this cloud. Whoosh. I don't think this does anything. I don't think this moves the needle. I think this might hurt more than if they had just announced a delay. Because if they had announced a delay, I think people would have just said, okay, at least they finally announced it. Now I don't need to worry about it. But them kind of dangling that carrot in the middle, with we got Pantheon and all these updates. And I think that has done more harm to their statement than the delay ever could. Because I just feel like players think they're constantly being disrespected. That Bungie doesn't understand. And Bungie's just trying to do stupid memes. They're trying to shake their hand, and people are just like, dude, stop. You can't just say Pantheon 2.0 when you're delaying this content for 3 months and expect everybody to be okay with it. Pantheon 2.0 is not oh, thank God. Whew, I was worried there for a minute. We're saved. It's not the reality. I don't know what happens from here. The ending of this story, the ending of Destiny, is not going to be the ending anyone predicted for it. And I don't mean the story. In Destiny, the story of Destiny. Nothing. I would be more surprised if they announced a new Destiny than I would be if they never made another Destiny game again, ever. That would be less surprising to me if they just abandoned this franchise completely and just said, nah, its best days are behind it. It's damaged goods in a way that I don't think they can recover from. And, you know, they'll still proudly put it from the creators of Halo and Destiny, just like they do in the Marathon trailers. You know, maybe they'll make something else that's like Destiny, but isn't. I think that's probably the best path forward. I'm more interested in that than I am any new piece of Destiny, you know, any new entry in the Destiny franchise, because I can't do it again. I just can't do it again. This is just a very, it's such a personal thing for me, you know. I don't like, I don't want to get like, I don't want to have like throw a sob story in here, but like Destiny got me through some of the hardest parts of my life, you know, in like 2018, 2019. You know, I was unemployed for 6 months because I was unceremoniously let go. It was a job that, you know, I had been transferred, and at first it all seemed good. And then, you know, the fact that I didn't speak the predominant language in the area of that city where I was transferred to, it turned out became a big detriment. And instead of trying to help me fix it when I asked for help, you know, the higher leadership just decided it was better to cut ties with me completely. And so I went through some tough times. I was unemployed. I didn't have any money. I was asking family for money just to pay my bills, which I ultimately couldn't keep up with. And I had to declare bankruptcy. You know, it was a struggle, and all those things happened. And having Destiny and having the people in Destiny that I was playing the game with is one of the few things that kept me going, because that was one of the few things I had. You know, my relationship with my family was a little strained at the time. I was stuck living at home because I didn't have anywhere else to go, and there was animosity there because really, you live with somebody long enough, and you know, you just try and, at a certain point, you know, you live with people long enough, and just your existence starts to become pain to them, it seems. And you know, yeah, I guess the late nights of Destiny didn't help when they're waking up from sleep because I'm screaming at a raid or whatever. It's not. Yeah, it wasn't a perfect life, but it was the one I had, and you know, things are a lot better now. But you know, it is not unreasonable to say that, you know, Destiny and the people that I have met through Destiny that I would not have met any other way. It matters so much to me, and that's why, like, this all feels personal to me, because this is something that I care about, something that I love because of all of the things that have come from it. The memories that I have built, the emotions that are attached. When I listen to music from Destiny, just kind of casually listen to it, I remember the moments and I get emotional sometimes. It might sound silly, but it's the reality. I will get emotional because I can remember the moment of the music so vividly, or I can remember a situation that happened, and something like, you know, hearing my friend just scream at the top of her lungs that she got the Acreus catalyst before before that raid went away. And then months later, when she gets the raid exotic from Deepstone Crypt, and she has to fake it because I called her out. I was like, wow, you got Acreus and you freaked out, and then you get this, and she's just like, woo. Like, it's just so many memories and great times, and it just, there's just never going to be anything like it again. Destiny, I think especially Destiny 2, was lightning in a bottle. And its best moments, its highest highs, are just so much more than anything else. And I I'm going to miss it. I already miss it. It's not even gone and I miss it. I miss the feelings I had playing with those people, and I miss the excitement that came from, experiencing that with them. And it really pains me that it's going down the path that it's going. And it's frustrating, but it's out of my control. And there's nothing I can do about it except, deal with it. That's the reality of the situation, is I just have to deal with it. And I have to understand that it's something that I'm not going to be able to change. And as much as it hurts, I'm going to be willing to let this game go when the time comes. Because I have to be. Because I can't stop it, right? And if I'm unwilling to accept that, then I'm the delusional one. Right? I'm the problem if I can't accept the fact that this is inevitably going to end, and it is inevitably going to end in a way that is going to hurt. It's not going to be a satisfying conclusion. It's going to be one that is, I believe, rather unceremonious, and not one that's going to respect the legacy that this game will ultimately have when it is looked back on a decade from now. I think people are going to forget the pain of Destiny 2, and they're going to ultimately just remember the good times. They're going to talk about all the mistakes. They're going to maybe dwell a little bit on how it could have been better. But I think ultimately, 10 years from now, people will look back on this game fondly, but they're not going to do it now. They're not going to do it in the near future. And I don't think a new entry, I think you'd have to wait 10 years to make a new Destiny for it to matter, for it to not bring up that bad blood. 5 years from now is a long time away, and I don't think it's long enough. I am realizing that I have been going for over an hour on this video. This has turned into a podcast. And if anybody is still listening at this point, I respect the heck out of you. I don't really know where I go from here, what I do from here with Destiny. I want to keep making videos, but the crux of wanting to continue to make those videos requires me to want to play the game, which right now I kind of don't. And until Bungie gives me like a good reason, it's hard to want to go back. That's the reality. And, I would love it if people were just like, hey, I would love it if these comments were flooded with people who are like, hey, I want to learn how to do this raid. I want to learn how to do this dungeon. Can you help me? I would love nothing more than to bring some joy to this community by helping people run stuff and enjoy the game and do the things that I loved in Destiny. I don't think it's going to happen, but Destiny has surprised us before. Maybe it will again. There's always going to be a sick part of me that believes that this game is one correct move away from recovering. And that part of me is just very quiet these days. It's a whisper now. Thank you guys so much for listening. Not really much to watch. I got a couple things up here, but thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you so much. And I'll see you when I see you.